As it was evening, the kids soon headed for their homes, but with their tummies really full for probably the first time in their lives, as they were all very poor. I stayed with Mr. Trail for a while longer, but as it got dark, I wanted to head for the kirkyard to sleep with my master, so I barked and scratched at the door.
All right, but you're a pest of a dog. Now I'll have to come with you to the kirkyard. You'll no get in there by yourself. The gates are locked now. Oh, come along.
So Mr. Trail took me along to the kirkyard and was very surprised to see Mr. Brown waiting for me at the gate.
I thought there was a strict regulation against dogs in the kirkyard.
Aye, there is. And the wee dog'll sleep in my house this night, if that concerns you.
He will not sleep in any house.
No in yours, maybe. But my wife Jeannie has taken a fancy to him, and he to us.
Oh.
We found him filthy and dirty with mud, and all tired out this morning. We washed him and he's grateful.
And I feed him.
Aye, and bring him to sneak back inside the kirkyard in the cold and against the law. He's sleeping in my house this night and every night, and you needn't bother feeding him any more, Mr. Trail. The wee dog has turned to us, so good night to you.
I liked Mr. Brown, and I liked Mr. Trail, and I was sorry they weren't friends. But I wanted to sleep in the kirkyard with Jock, my master, and that's what I did. Mr. Brown tried to get me to come in by his fire, but I knew my place was beside Jock in the kirkyard. The next morning, bright and early, the kids and I set out for Mr. Trail's. He had evidently been doing some thinking about Tammy and Ailey, and all the poor kids that lived around Greyfriars. For he said to Tammy first thing, that since his legs would never be any good, he'd have to learn to make a living with his head, and that he was going to enroll Tammy in aero school, the best in Edinburgh, and pay his fees for him. As for Ailey, he gave her a job waiting on tables in his restaurant. So we were all around the place, when suddenly the door was darkened by a long grim form, and Mr. McLean, the policeman, confronted us.
Good day to you, Davey, and how are you?
So ye have a dog here now, John. I didn't know.
Well, no doubt there's still a few things you did not know, Davey. The wee dog is a customer of mine.
I didn't come here for jokes. I came here in the line of my duty. Are you Mr. John Trail?
What ails you, man? You know my name as well as you know your own.
It's a formality of the law to make ye admit your identity. Here's a bit of paper for ye. You're summoned to appear before the magistrate of the Borough Court tomorrow to answer the charge of owning or harbouring one dog, of which ye haven't paid the licence tax of 7 shillings.
Who says I own or harbour a dog?
I can use my own eyes.
Can you use your head?
I can, and I've been watching that wee dog for a long time and trying to catch him too, because I thought he had no licence. Mr. Brown said...
Mr. Brown? I might have known that old fool at the kirkyard was behind all this. I'll see about this right away so you can take yourself off.
You mean you'll pay?
No!
Then I'll have to take the dog with me, and you'll present yourself to the court tomorrow.
Mr. Trail, what does it mean? Is it not a joke?
Oh, no joke at all. The Municipal Court of Edinburgh is very important. The Lord Provost himself sits on the bench there, when it is his turn to do so. 'Tis a serious matter.
But what about Bobby?
Oh, he'll be all right tonight. But if someone doesn't pay his licence tomorrow, they'll have to put him away. His licence must be paid by his true owner, and I'm not that, nor is Mr. James Brown.
Ailey ran out of the place crying. Mr. Trail put on his hat and went out, while Mr. McLean, with me held tightly under his arm, headed for jail. Struggle as I might, I couldn't get away, and so I spent a miserable night away from my master, and wondering what the next day would bring. The next morning, Mr. McLean took me to the municipal court, and I was more scared than I'd ever been in my life. There, sitting up on the high bench, was the Lord Provost of Edinburgh. He was a big man with a stern look on his face. Mr. Trail and Mr. Brown were sitting on the benches down below. Mr. Trail suddenly stood up and spoke.
There's many would say this is no much of a case for the Lord Provost to bother his head about, your lordship.
I must be the judge of that, Mr. Trail. Constable McLean has the prisoner in custody, I see. Now, Mr. Trail, the points at issue are very simple. Do you give food and shelter to this dog, and do you own it? Let us take the first point first. A responsible officer of the law has seen you feed the animal on your premises.
If you mean Davey McLean, I have often fed that responsible officer too, your lordship. But I have no license for him.
Mr. Trail?
Aye, your lordship. I've always fed the wee dog, and I'm no denying it.
Yet you say you don't own the dog.
Ugh, I've courted the wee terrier for a long, long time, because I have nobody of my own. But he'll have none of me, except his friendly and polite. He just grieves the old man Jacques that's buried in Greyfriars Kirkland.
But the law says he must have an owner.
And I cannot claim to be that, your lordship, because it isn't true. But I cannot believe the Lord would make a man abandon his principles and lie or take the life of a wee dog just for a matter of a few shillings on a piece of paper.
The law deals with facts, not emotions, Mr. Trail. The dog is ownerless and unlicensed.
I'm the dog's owner.
James Brown, you're telling a lie.
Your name?
James Brown, your lordship. And
You claim ownership of the dog?
I do, your lordship. And I've come to pay the license for him.
James Brown is no the owner of the dog.
If I pay for him, I am.
You have no legal right to Bobbin any more than I.
Mr. Brown, the dog sleeps under your roof?
Well, no at night, your lordship. No, I cannot say that. He sleeps in the kirkyard.
I feel I must point out to both of you that the dog sleeps under neither's roof. So belongs no more to one than to the other.
I was summoned to license him and be his owner, and I will.
But I asked first.
Just then there was a terrible commotion at the door of the courtroom, and it burst open, and in came running Ailey and all the kids, with Tammy on his crutches trying to keep up. Bobby! Oh, Tammy, look! He's here! He's not dead! Mr. Trail, we're in time.
Silence! Close the door.
Mr. Trail, I had the money for the license in my hat. It's 7 shillings, if you want to count.
But where did you bairns get at this? And how did you?
Everybody about the kirkyard gave it to pay the police no to make Bobby dead.
Aye, near every bairn we at.
I gave you a penny.
I give 2 farthings, Mr. Trail.
Everybody gives something.
Now, have you no respect for where you are? In the great bird court? No.
Mr. Trail, hand the dog up here. Now answer me this, any of you. Do you know what it is to be given the freedom of the city?
'Tis when the Queen comes, mister, and you give her the keys to the bird gates.
Right, laddie. We give the keys to visitors who are grand or wise or just useful out of the ordinary.
Mr. Gladstone, the Prime Minister, and Miss Florence Nightingale.
Yes, to the brave and faithful. And now here's a wee dog that's a faithful out of the ordinary for a dead man he loved. He's gone hungry and been cold. He has never forgotten him, nor left his side at night.
And do the police not have to take him?
If he's made free of the city, he can wander where he likes. I have here a little collar for him. It reads, Greyfriars Bobby, from the Lord Provost, 1867, licensed.
Haley, there's a Lord Provost himself, and I call him Mister.
If dozens of children who know him will fetch 7 shillings in their farthings and pennies for him, they buy the right for the dog to live in the care of them all, in the kirkyard of Greyfriars. But he must have this collar, so all the police will know him and never take him up for a masterless dog. He belongs to all of you, and all of you are responsible for him now.
The good Lord Mayor made this decree that gave him great renown. A dog as loyal as Bobby, he would have the key to the town. Greyfriars Bobby, the day is ripped and raw. Greyfriars Bobby, your master's getting a walk. Come with we Bobby, will roam the brake through the heather and far away. Greyfriars Bobby, please come out and play.
Having the freedom of Edinburgh was wonderful for me. I went everywhere there was to go and saw everything there was to see. I attended every official function and led every parade. But every night I would head for Greyfriars Kirkland to sleep beside my master.
Good night, Bobby.
Good night to you, Bobby. Mr. Trail, will you now come in?
What for, Mr. Brown?
Och, come in, come to my house and have tea with me and Jeanie.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I will.
I was happy to see Master Trail and Mr. Brown friends at last. I settled down in the kirkyard for a good night's sleep. And as the lights went out in the nearby houses, I heard Tammy and Ailey and the children singing.
Should all